Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most powerful, literally world-changing stories ever told. We're looking at a narrative of epic proportions, right? A tale of ultimate destruction and just absolutely incredible survival that has been passed down and captivated humanity for thousands of years. We're stepping back in time to explore the account of Noah's Ark, right into a world on the very brink of being completely washed away.
I want you to really put yourself in this position for a second. What if a single man was chosen to save humanity? Just imagine the incredibly high stakes of that scenario. Think about the intense isolation, the absolutely crushing responsibility placed squarely on the shoulders of just one person. They're tasked with preserving life on Earth, while the rest of civilization just goes about its day, totally oblivious. And then, ask yourself this: what if the entire world was simply washed away? We're talking about a cataclysmic, world-ending scale of disaster here. A judgment so complete that valleys vanished and mountains literally disappeared beneath the waves, erasing the entire course of human history in just a matter of days.
Which brings us to Chapter 1, A World Consumed by Evil, the Descent of Humanity.
So the story kicks off in an era where early humanity had really multiplied, and civilizations were booming. Cities were growing, families expanding, but with all that rapid prosperity came a really dark descent. The world quickly turned into a place of unchecked violence, overwhelming greed, and just deep-rooted corruption. The weak were oppressed, justice completely vanished, and people lived purely for their own selfish desires. You had this totally corrupted society where murder, deception, and cruelty were just accepted as normal. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast with Noah. He wasn't some king or a great warrior. He was just a righteous, blameless guy with unwavering faith. While everyone else mocked morality and embraced the chaos, Noah walked with God in quiet obedience.
And that quiet obedience leads us straight into Part 2, Building the Impossible Ark, a test of faith.
Because of Noah's unique character, God gives him this absolutely extraordinary, seemingly impossible command. A great flood is coming to cleanse the earth, and Noah has to build a massive vessel right there on dry land. I mean, just think about the pure absurdity of this task. The dimensions described are staggering. The ark was to be hundreds of feet long. He's building this giant ship miles from any ocean, with zero modern tools, no heavy machinery, no structural engineers, nothing. As day after day and year after year dragged on, you can only imagine the brutal mocking and laughter Noah had to endure from his neighbors as this massive wooden structure slowly rose up from the dirt. Nobody listened to his warnings.
But as the ark finally neared completion, the impossible actually started happening. Just picture this gathering: lions, elephants, birds, deer, wolves, camels, countless pairs of species arriving from forests, mountains, and distant deserts. It's a visually overwhelming scale of animals all converging on this single vessel. Noah and his family are frantically storing food, prepping supplies, and guiding these creatures aboard as the final moments tick away.
Then, we hit the terrifying turning point of our story. Chapter 3, The 40-Day Flood, the day the world was washed away. Once Noah, his family, and all those animals are safely inside, God commands the massive door of the ark to be shut. Outside, people are still eating, working, celebrating, totally unaware. But then, the skies darken. Heavy clouds roll in, thunder echoes across the horizon, and the oblivious world outside faces its final days as the rain starts to fall. Following this timeline, you can see the horrifying escalation of the storm. First, the rain begins. Seems ordinary at first, right? But it just doesn't stop. Then, the text described the fountains of the deep bursting open from beneath the earth. Water is violently surging up from below while torrential rain pours from above. Rivers overflow, swallowing roads, whole villages. People panic, running for higher ground, but the water just keeps rising until even the highest mountain peaks are completely submerged, entirely erasing civilization.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer psychological weight of that number, 40. 40 days and 40 nights of continuous, relentless, pounding rain. It wasn't just a severe storm. It was the total erasure of the world they knew. Day after agonizing day with nowhere to go and nothing to see but a violent, endless ocean stretching in every single direction.
Inside the ark, it was literally a floating world, a final refuge amidst total destruction. Imagine the intense sensory experience in there. It was incredibly isolating. It was dark, the air was thick, and man, it was loud. The constant, terrifying roar of waves crashing against the wooden hull, mixed with the cries and sounds of thousands of restless animals.
Noah's family was surviving, waiting and praying in this cramped space, while the rest of the earth was literally swallowed whole.
But the storm doesn't last forever. We enter a new, much-needed phase of the story. Part 4. A promise of hope. The waters recede.
After weeks turn into months, God sends a wind across the earth. Slowly, finally, the torrential waters begin to recede. Mountains peek out from the sea, and the ark eventually comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The flood did its job, but Noah doesn't just throw up in the doors right away. He's methodical about searching for dry land. Let's move to and see how this builds. First, he releases a raven. Then, step 2, he sends a dove, which comes right back because there's nowhere to land. Step 3, days later he sends the dove again, and this time it returns carrying an olive leaf. And finally, step 4, the dove departs and doesn't return at all. It's a beautiful visual progression of time passing and the slow, steady return of life to a battered earth. When God commands Noah's family to finally leave the ark, they step out into a completely transformed world. Animals emerge, birds fill the sky, and human civilization gets a second chance. And it's here we see the Rainbow Covenant. God establishes this sacred promise that a flood will never again destroy all life on earth. The rainbow is placed right there in the sky as a profound, timeless symbol of mercy, renewal, and hope after such overwhelming judgment.
So the crucial point is that Noah's ultimate legacy isn't just about surviving a disaster, it's about his mindset. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep going, despite uncertainty. Noah's faith allowed him to spend years building a massive ship and trusting the process long before there was ever any proof of a single rain cloud. He obeyed when others laughed, and because he did, life endured.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to take away from today's explainer. Will you have the courage to keep building even before you see the storm? How do you handle doubt in your own life? Do you have the conviction to stand by what you believe is right and to prepare for the future, even when the rest of the world thinks you're crazy? It's a really powerful question to reflect on. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpacked this incredible story, and I'll talk to you next time.